delayed here, little technical difficulties, but we've got it all worked out. I'm Heather Florio, the CEO of Desert Harvest. We provide a variety of different skincare and supplement products for pelvic pain. And for Pelvic Health Month, we wanted to bring on who we thought was the best yogi out there that could help provide you guidance. The founder of Pelvic Floor Yoga. Leslie Howard is here, and I'll just briefly introduce her. She is a certified yoga practitioner and teacher with over 20 years of experience and more than 3,500 hours of yoga study. She is the author of Pelvic Liberation, detailing key yoga postures and breathing practices to awaken and heal the pelvis. And she has designed 2 yoga studies, one on pelvic pain and one on incontinence for the University of California, San Francisco. And she is also the creator, as I mentioned before, of pelvic floor yoga. Leslie utilizes a refined application of Iyengar-influenced yoga and breath work to alleviate pelvic floor conditions. Leslie, can you elaborate more on that for me?
Yes, thank you for having me. And I'll just say that I've been a long-time yogi and yoga teacher. Sorry, my cat loves to do cameos. About 12 years ago, I started having pelvic pain myself. And as a long-time yoga practitioner, I wasn't prepared for that. And it wasn't until I ended up going to internal physical therapist that I got diagnosed with what's called hypertonic pelvic floor, which a lot of you that are here today probably have been diagnosed with the same thing. Hypertonic meaning my pelvic floor muscles were very tight and short, and I was having trouble sitting for very long. I was having trouble having intercourse, lots of pain. And so between getting tipped off by my physical therapist that my muscles were tight, I was like, oh my God, I'm a longtime yogi. How did this happen? I started really just looking at my life and how outside of the yoga room, what was my posture like? What was my breathing like? So, when I was in the classroom, I felt like things were good, but it was outside the classroom that I was, sitting in a slumped position. I started noticing that my breathing wasn't very good when I was not in the yoga class. And then this led me to refine more, so that I came up with, a basic system, an approach to yoga postures and breath awareness that helped me. And then it ended up helping a lot of other people. And now it's being studied by UCSF. So it's amazing.
Great. So I do know that you have this whole series for this is about pelvic pain at home. A lot of us are stuck in home right now, and are having pelvic floor pain and looking the traditional ways of going to a yoga class or going to pelvic PT is kind of not an option right now. So I do know that you are offering a live stream series. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'll take us through a couple postures and breathing awareness practices this morning. And I do regularly. I do a 3-part series. That's a 2-hour class, 3 classes once a week. Each class is a little different, and people have been really happy with finding relief from their pelvic pain. So not all poses help all people, but you'll definitely find some poses that will help you, and they will become your go-tos when pain is
perfect.
flared.
Well, I will let you get to it, and then we can talk a little bit more at the end. I'm sure everybody's waiting for me to jump out of the picture and you to.
So I'm just gonna talk for 1 minute about anatomy. I have my medical model. My pelvis name is Ruby. And what I want us to be aware of, I'm just going to bring this closer to the camera, is that the pelvic floor is framed by 4 landmarks: the pubic bone in the front, the coccyx, tailbone in the back, and the two sitting bones on the left and the right side. So when we have pelvic pain, usually the muscles are short, which means that your tailbone is more forward and your sitting bones are closer together. And that is, the short, tight muscles can do things like compress nerves. It can affect how you're breathing. So I want us to think about the first thing we're going to look at is our breathing. So ideally, if we're breathing well and correctly, and this is a very short version of what I do in my class, is that on inhalation, our pelvic floor actually widens. It should widen. Okay. And on exhalation, it narrows. Not because we're doing any manipulation of the pelvic floor, but I want you to think of the pelvic floor receiving the movement of breath as we inhale, and as we exhale, the pelvic floor slightly lifts to help your exhale exit the lungs and the nose. Okay, so what I'd like us to start with is breathing. So if I know a lot of us don't have props, so we're just going to do the best we can with what we have, right? We have no other choice. But if you had blankets or towels or something, it would be probably a little more pleasurable to lie down on your back. So if you have some items, you could have a blanket under your head, maybe one under your knees, a little roll under your knees. And then if you had a third towel or blanket, have it nearby. And you're going to come down onto your back. And if this is not comfortable in any way, I would put more support under the knees, okay? And what I want us to do first is just tune into the breath. So you're going to be lying supine, face up. Make any little adjustments you need to make to be comfortable. Let your legs completely relax. You're going to close the eyes, and then I want you to just try to slow down your inhalation, slow down your exhalation. So think about what I just talked about. So when you inhale, you're going to bring your mind down to the pelvic floor. And can you imagine, even if you don't feel it, can you imagine that your pelvic floor widens as you inhale? So think about your cells moving slightly away from each other on inhale, slightly towards each other on exhale. And again, this is just using the imagination. It's not a very big movement at all. You're not doing any manipulation. It's like, think of your pelvic floor like at the consistency of a trampoline, and that when you inhale, that trampoline is going down slightly, and as you exhale, the trampoline is bouncing back up. So you're just noticing how long your inhale and exhale are. So just count a few rounds, how many seconds. Notice your ability to feel your breath in the lower part of your body. So for many of us, particularly those of us that have pelvic pain, I find that the breath kind of stops around the navel. Like there's not a lot of movement below the navel. So just checking that. How low do you feel your breath? And then one more thing I want you to look at is the two sides, the left and right side. Sometimes people notice that when you inhale, one side of your body inflates more than the other. Just take a couple rounds noticing that. Does your left chest open more or your right chest open more? Do you feel more movement in the left belly or the right belly? And what I have found teaching this work is usually the side of the breath that feels constricted in your torso is often the tighter side of the pelvic floor. Just noticing that. Okay, and then if you have one more item, to put down on yourself, you would take the blanket and place it across your thighs, or towel, or even if you have like a couple of blocks, you could just place them on your thighs. And what you're going to notice is, did that have any effect? Did that have any effect on your breath? So for most of us, we're just putting something really light on the thigh bones. But if you were in my studio, I might put a sandbag, like a 10-pound sandbag on the thigh bones. And people often notice that their breath deepens with that action. Maybe just half a minute more. Noticing if the breath has changed by putting just a little weight on the thigh bones. Okay, and then I want to show you one more thing that can be really helpful for some people. So I also work with mudras, and mudras are usually done with the hands. Their energy, they shift your energy a little bit. And there's many of them. There's so many for so many different things, but there's a few of them that I have found that really work well with trying to get our breath to be deeper, fuller, and ourselves more grounded to help the pelvic floor. So I'd like us, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you the mudra, and then you're going to go lie down one more time, and we're going to see if it changes. So you'll lie down with your palms the way they just were, open and relaxed. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is take this mudra. I'm going to show you. It's called Prana Mudra, and it's connecting the thumb tip with the ring finger and the pinky. And then you're bringing your index finger and middle fingers together. So you're making a little bit of a circle with your pinky, ring finger, thumb, but you're keeping the index finger, middle finger straight and together. So think peace sign, but together. Okay. So go on back to your space and start with your palms open. So most of you now have kind of an impression of your breath, how deep it is, how full it is, how long it is, where you're aware of it. And then after maybe just 2 or 3 deep breaths, can you come into the mudra? So I'll say it again, I'll show it again in case you forgot. So thumb tip connects with pinky tip, ring finger tip. You're creating a little circle with those fingers. And then you're bringing your index finger and your middle finger together. So the back of the hand is on the ground. And just give yourself a couple of rounds of breath there and see if holding the mudra was helpful, if it made any change in your breath. And if you took the mudra and you're not quite sure if it made a difference, it can really be helpful for learning. And so, we're just trying to get to a subtle level of learning. Open one of your hands and keep one hand in the mudra and see if you feel a difference on the side you're holding the mudra and the side you're not holding the mudra. And then last couple of breaths. So if you felt like, oh, the side that my mudra is on, I feel better. Bring your other hand now into the mudra and see if it doesn't help your breath go a little lower into your pelvis. So prana is, in yoga philosophy, prana is our life force. And we want our prana to be balanced. And when we have pelvic pain, our prana, our energy body is out of alignment. So the mudras can really help bring our energy, our breath back into better alignment. Okay, and then from your back, you're going to bend your legs and roll to your side to come up. So I'm going to do one more breathing practice, and I'm spending this much time on the breath because, in my opinion, it is the most important thing that we can do for our pelvic floor health, for pain, is get our breath to be a little bit better, fuller, more, I like to use the word circumferential, that our breath is circumferential. It's not just in the front, but it's on the sides and the back and the lower and the upper. So for some people, they prefer and they have a better experience with their breath when they are face down. So if you have your 2 towels or blankets, to be the most comfortable, of course you can lie on your belly with nothing but your mat, but to be more comfortable, one blanket would be folded skinny to put under the front of the ankle. And then the other blanket, you might want to put it under your forehead if you want to keep your head straight. It's perfectly fine to have your arms up and your head turned to one side, but that's just going to be a little bit better. Okay, so if you want, I will show you how I would set it up. So I've got that blanket under my front ankle, and then for me, I like to have a little more support under the forehead, and you could have your arms either in a cactus position, or you could have your arms at your side. I think the cactus position is better for most people. If this is at all uncomfortable in the lower back, you could put a little hand towel under your, from navel to pubic bone would help to support that area. But let's just give this a try for maybe 2 minutes. So this is a great breathing practice to do, especially if you feel like your breath is short, if you feel like your breath is more present in your chest. So what's happening is the floor is containing your front body. So it's insisting now the movement created by breathing goes more to your back body, to your side body. And also being face down for many people can be very soothing, right? And what we're trying to do with pelvic pain is we're trying to soothe and calm our nervous system. And that is one of the primary goals of Hatha yoga. So Hatha yoga is just denoting the physical practice of postures. So we're trying to take our nervous system down a few notches. Maybe just half a minute more here. So some of you are going to be like, oh my God, I like it so much better. And some of you are going to be like, oh my God, I don't like it. I like being on my back better. So that's why I offer actually lots of different ways of getting in touch with your breath. Okay, and then to come out of this, probably the best way is to bring your hands underneath the chest, and then you're going to push yourself up. And then the next thing I wanted to do was a little practice for our psoas muscle. So for this, you need a yoga block. If you don't have a yoga block, you could just grab a book. A thick book works totally great. Okay, so let me show it to you. We're going to be on the back with nothing but the mat under you. I start with my knees bent, the block's in my hand. So again, this is a thick book or a block. I like to go with the lower orientation, and this is going to go under my sacrum. If you're not completely sure where the sacrum is, let me just show you real quick, close up. So it's going right where your tailbone is the base of your spine. Your sacrum is right here. So we're putting this right under the sacrum. Okay, so you're in like a supported bridge pose if you're familiar with that yoga posture. But then from here, what I want us to do is stretch the front of the groin. So you're going to bring your right knee in towards your chest. And you're going to take the left leg up in the air just for a moment. And the reason you're doing that is it's easier to engage your abdomen now. So draw your abdomen back. So we want to keep our belly strong here. And then slowly lower your right heel to the ground, keeping the legs straight. Be careful, a few inches before you touch down, the back is going to try to arch, and that's why I had you engage your belly. So if you're doing this correctly, the stretch should be in the front of the groin area. If you don't feel that, you're either slightly bending your knee, you're letting your back arch. If you're very open in the groin, you might need to put the brick on medium. So those are reasons that you might not feel it. And then you're going to reach the left arm away from your left leg. So we're doing the left side first. You're stretching arm and leg away from each other. And what I want you to notice is how much stretch do you have in that left groin area. And then notice your breath. So if you take a couple deep breaths in that pose, what I'm hoping you'll notice is the leg that's straight, the left leg, you're going to feel that your breath goes down a little bit lower on that side. So what we're stretching here is the end of the psoas muscle. Your psoas muscle is a hip flexor, but so much more. It attaches at the top near our respiratory diaphragm, and it's pretty much tight in everybody because we sit a lot. So this can also really help the breath flow better. Okay, and then so from here, you're going to bend the left knee, put both feet on the floor, take a couple breaths. So you're back in your bridge pose. Just notice any difference from the side that was stretched. How is your breath? Okay, and then changing sides, drawing the opposite leg in. I know some of you did the other side, which is fine because I'm getting confusing here. Okay, and then so you're hugging one knee in, the opposite leg goes up. That's to draw your belly in, and as you lower the leg, the straight leg to the ground, keep your abdomen engaged, keep your abdomen engaged, keep your abdomen engaged. Try to get that heel all the way to the ground with the leg straight, and then stretch that same side arm away from you. So as a yoga teacher, we try to mirror, and sometimes we're doing the opposite side. So I'm sorry if I confused anybody. All right, and so just noticing differences side to side. So often one side is significantly tighter than the other. And is it the side that you felt like, oh, that side was harder to take a deep breath on? So, this is like, I like to think of myself when I work with people as a pelvic floor detective. So just finding all these different places where we might be holding tension and finding where can we find relief. And just 2 more long, slow, deep, full breaths. And then go ahead and bend your knees. When you lift off of the block, when you lift your pelvis up, engage the buttock muscles. And then pull the brick out, come down slowly. Take a couple deep breaths. And then hug your knees into your chest and roll to your side and take a look at what I'm going to ask you to do. So again, if you have anything, a little something to put under the head, that would be great. And then if you have a yoga strap, if you don't have a yoga strap, you can use a towel. You could use an actual pant belt. You could use a piece of rope. There's so many options. You don't have to get a special yoga strap. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stretch the hamstrings, but I want to make a point about that. So if I have really tight hamstrings and I sit on the floor with straight legs, what happens is my hamstrings pull me into this rounded back, and that is right now shortening my pelvic floor. My tailbone is really pushing forward, so this is not helping my pelvic floor. So what we want to do in yoga is try to find, can I get up onto my sitting bones? So if I was in this pose with tight hamstrings, I'd put you up on a blanket. But what we're going to do is we're going to lie down. So I want you to just see that the shape of the relationship of my torso to my legs is going to be the same in this pose. So I'm lying down. I start with legs bent, and then I take my right leg up in the air with the strap. And so what I don't want to do is strongly push my lower back into the floor. It's not that the lower back might not be touching, but you don't want to pull on the strap so strongly that your back pushes into the floor. So I'm going to say be light on your lower back. Be light on your lower back. So that might mean that you're not pulling as hard on the strap as you're used to. Okay? Okay, now if you are holding the two sides of the strap with each hand, we're on the right leg. I'm not going to mess this up. Your left leg is bent right now. Right leg is as close to 90 degrees, but it doesn't have to be at 90. What's more important is where is the weight on your back? Your weight should be just a tiny bit more towards that sacrum, towards the base of the spine. Straighten in the leg if you can. And now push out through your right sitting bone. So when we take the leg up, it tends to shorten that side of the body. Can you push out through your right sitting bone? And that may deepen your breath. And you could do this pose like this with the bottom leg bent. Especially if you have any lower back pain, you might want to do it this way. And some of you might want to take the bottom leg straight. Totally optional. Really the goal here is we're trying to get a stretch of the back of the right leg without pushing the lower back into the floor, without shortening my pelvic floor. So the more that I can lengthen through my right sitting bone, the more my tailbone releases. That is going to very softly, subtly, kindly open the pelvic floor. How's the breath? Can you get your breath low into the pelvis here? And then go ahead and release out of that. And you could either have both legs bent or both legs straight, but relaxed for a moment. What I want you to just see is we've stretched the right hamstring. Can you feel a difference in your ability to take a deep breath? It should feel easier now on the right side. Okay, and in my experience in teaching, I find that the left hamstring is usually tighter. So let's do the left side. Okay, so start with your legs bent. Take your left leg up. Again, you may not be able to straighten it all the way. So another way to say what I've been trying to get across is the femur, the thigh bone, can be perpendicular to the floor, but the shin doesn't need to be. So if you're super tight in the legs, I'd rather you approach this pose with a little bend in the knee. Again, what I see a lot of students doing is pulling with all of their might, pulling their leg towards their face, which probably feels good, but if you have pelvic pain, it can be an aggravant to your lumbar, your lower back, or your pelvic floor. So that's why I'm having you do it this way. So if you can have the legs straight, keeping the left thigh bone perpendicular, that would be great. And now you want to push out through the left sitting bone. Find your breath. Can you imagine that on the inhalation, your pelvic floor widens slightly? On the exhale, your pelvic floor releases. So imagine again those 4 bones I showed you at the beginning, pubic bone, tailbone, sitting bones. On the inhale, they widen. And on the exhale, they move a little bit towards each other. I'm going to leave it up to your lower back, whether you're going to straighten the bottom leg. When you straighten the bottom leg, it makes the top hamstring stretch more. Can you keep your face relaxed? So no excess tension in here. So the jaw is relaxed. Our jaw has an intimate relationship with the pelvic floor. I see a lot of jaw clenchers or grinders. That's really very common in people with pelvic floor pain because there's a huge relationship with the mouth and the pelvis. Okay, and then go ahead and to release out of this, I'm going to again let you decide whether it would feel better for your back to have your knees bent and your knees resting into one another, or to have the legs extended in like a Shavasana position. And again, I'd like you to just touch base with your breath. Just take a couple deep breaths. What I want you to do is just keep comparing how your breath was at the very beginning, how it was when we did one side. Okay, and so what we just did is we stretched the hamstring. The hamstring's attached to the sitting bones. If the hamstrings are tight, it's constantly pulling your sitting bones under you. So hopefully that helps a little bit there. The next thing I want to do, so the second layer of the pelvic floor attaches to the inner edge of your sitting bones. What I find with people with pelvic pain is that we're tight in the inner thigh. So the inner thigh muscles connect into the other side of the sitting bones. So we want to get our adductors open, and that can help the second layer of the pelvic floor. So if you have a block or a blanket or something, it can be helpful. You're going to have it on your right side. I'm going to show this pose in a slightly different angle so you can see what I'm going to do here, okay? So just take a look. So I'm lying down again, blanket under my head, and I want to have my support, whatever it is, block, blanket, put it on next to your hip. And then we're going to take the right leg up again. This time we're going to hold with the right hand. And we're going to take this right leg out to the side. But what I want us to do, so watch this, is I bring the left knee in line with the right knee. I'm going to hold my left knee. And then what I want to do is take my legs wide. So the block or your blanket is helping to support this leg so you're not tipping to the right. And your left hand is helping to support the left knee. And ideally, you're feeling this in your inner thighs. If you're not feeling this in your inner thighs, that tells me that you are pushing your lumbar into the floor. So can you, again, just be a little bit lighter on the lumbar? Visualize your tailbone releasing towards the floor. So again, when we widen the sitting bones, when we let the tailbone release, that is going to help your pelvic floor get a little more stretch. And now you're going to inhale. Pelvic floor widens. Exhale. Pelvic floor narrows. Not because you're doing anything, but allowing it to happen. Okay, and then on your next exhale, you're going to bring the two knees together. Let the left foot come to the floor. Release your right foot to the floor. Drop your knees into each other. Again, take a couple deep breaths here. Can you feel your breath in your pelvis? Hopefully, as we're going through these poses, you're starting to be more aware of the breath in the lower part of the torso. Okay, so take your support over to your left hip now, which is the same thing, side 2. So take the strap around the left foot, take the leg vertical. I'm holding the belts with just my left hand. Before I take the left leg out to the side, I want to bring my right knee in line. My right hand can help to support, and now I'm separating the 2 thigh bones away from each other. And the tendency will be that because the left leg is straight, it's going to pull you a little bit more to the left. So that's why you have that support there on the side. You're trying to stay as even as possible on your sacrum. Again, ideally, you're feeling a stretch in the inner thighs, the left one probably more. And can you allow your tailbone to release towards the ground? So we don't want to scoop it in. We want to release it down. And close your eyes, relax your jaw. Can you deepen your breath? Can you invite your breath to touch the pelvic floor? So again, if it helps you to visualize pelvic floor opening slightly on inhale. On exhale, the sitting bones slightly drop towards each other. And again, this is like super, super, super subtle work. You may or may not feel this, but if you do this enough, you definitely will start to feel it. Okay, and then on your next exhale, you're going to bring the 2 knees towards each other. And bend the legs, feet to the floor. Let your knees drop together. Take a couple deep breaths. Okay, and then, so I want you to think about what we've done. So we've stretched the back of the leg, we've stretched the inner leg, that one on the block was stretching the front. So the one area around the hip that we haven't stretched is the outer hip. I'm sure you're all familiar with the figure 4 stretch, but I'm going to give you some options in case that's challenging for you. Okay, so again, blanket under the head, really helpful. I'm going to even fold my blanket more because if I have more support under my head in this pose, I'm more apt to be able to let my pelvic floor release. So figure 4, I'm sure you've all done it, where you cross your ankle over your thigh and you hold the back of your thigh. For some people, that might be challenging to hold the legs. So this is where, again, a yoga block or a book, a thick book can help. So you can put it on low, medium, so that your bottom foot is now, you don't have to hold it, and you cross the right ankle over the leg. And if you have tighter outer hips, this is going to be enough. Okay, it's for people who are a little more open that can hold the leg. You can hold the back of the thigh, you could hold the shin. But let me, so one of the things about pelvic floor yoga is it's the devil's in the details. We've all heard that saying. So it's the little things that I'm talking about that help the pelvic floor. So look at the right foot. Many of us tend to be have that foot just relaxed. The more that you push through the inner edge of your right heel, I'm hoping that's going to make you feel your outer right hip a little bit more. The other thing you want to do is the right side of your waist now has shortened because of the position of the leg. So the instruction is going to be lengthen your right sitting bone away from your head. That's going to help you, again, release your tailbone down, which opens your pelvic floor. Okay. And that should help to even out your breath a little bit. So take a couple deep breaths here. And so again, you can be really aggressive with this pose and pull your shin in maximum, but that's going to round your back. And remember, when the back is round, the pelvic floor is short. Okay. Sorry, I keep coming up to the camera because my screen keeps going off. Okay. All right, that's enough on that side. If you like the block under the foot, you could put it under the right foot or left ankle over right thigh. You're going to hold either the back of the thigh. You've got your foot on a block, or holding the back of the thigh, or holding the shin, depending on your flexibility. But again, can you not put a ton of pressure on the lower back? Keep that left foot flexed. So what you're doing is you're pushing out through the inner heel more than the little toe side of the foot. And then lengthen the left side of your waist, left sitting bone away from your head. So another way to say that is, imagine if I were in the room with you and I put a yoga belt in your left hip crease, I would pull it towards the sitting bone, away from the head. And that would feel really, really good. Relax your shoulders as best you can, depending on how you're holding the leg. It rounds your chest a little bit, so try to minimize that. Check in again with your face. Can you be relaxed in the face? Check your jaw. I know I am a recovering jaw clencher, which definitely was a contributor to the tightness of my pelvic floor. So if you know that you do that, so you have to just keep revisiting, am I clenching? Am I grinding? Am I pushing my jaw? Am I pushing my lower jaw into my upper jaw? Okay, and then go ahead and release your feet to the ground. And what I'd like us to do is just check in again with straight legs, if that's comfortable for you. Come into like Shavasana position of the legs. So let them extend, relax them, and then just take a couple of deep breaths. And what I want you to do is compare your breath now with how your breath was when we started. Hopefully it's a little better. And I want to just show you one more stretch. If we ever get back to regular yoga classes, I call this my secret pelvic floor stretch. So pretty much in every yoga class you ever go to, they'll tell you to hug your knees into your chest, which is a great thing to do. It feels wonderful on your lower back, but it doesn't stretch your pelvic floor. What it does is it lengthens your lower back, which is, again, not a bad thing to do, but I want you to feel the difference, and you can see the difference. So again, I've got my blanket under my head. When I hug my knees into my chest, oh, this feels so good after a yoga class. I love doing that. But visualize now, my tailbone is really tucked in. So just notice the difference between this, and then if I let my knees go, a little further from the front of the body, now my weight's on my sacrum, and then I drop my knees out to the side. And so now we're kind of doing a mini version of what you did with the belt. But this should feel like, oh, such a nice stretch, nice big stretch for the pelvic floor. Take a couple deep breaths. Can you visualize your pelvic floor opening as you inhale? So sitting bones widen on inhale. They narrow on exhale. So just a little variation there can make a big difference. And then bring your knees together. Bring your feet to the floor. Roll to your side to come up. And one last thing I want to show you is I'm going to describe a pelvic floor massage. And Heather may want to come back in here because I know she has some things that can help that. So I've got, again, my model. And Heather, jump on in if you want to. So remember, this is what you're looking at here are the muscles of the pelvic floor.
There we go.
Yeah, there you are. Okay, so what can be very, very, very helpful for pelvic pain is of course, I mentioned the pelvic floor PT, and you may want to start with them. You may want to start with a pelvic floor PT, but I've had many people get a lot of relief on their own, doing their own exploration. And I'm going to describe that. And then Heather's going to jump in and tell you some things she has that can help that. So if you have pelvic pain, one of the things that you may have is vaginismus. If you've got that diagnosis, what that means is your vaginal opening is very tight. And so for some of us, we can't get into the vaginal opening. If that's the case, I'm going to encourage you to just massage the outer area of the pelvic floor. But many of us are able to get in. You may want to just start with your fingers, but then you may graduate to a tool, which Heather's going to talk about. But you may want to just explore a little bit through the vaginal opening. And I'm going to open my model so you can see what happens here, because my model Ruby doesn't stretch like we do. So I've got so this is the vaginal opening. And so you'd be putting thumb or maybe index finger in. And this is just to get a little bit of familiarity and release through your deeper pelvic floor muscles. Okay. So what you're doing is you're just giving a very light massage. You can strum this way. The muscles up here go from front to back. So you want to do what's called cross fiber, super gentle. And what you might find is that you're tighter in some areas than others, and that's going to give you a lot of good information. You may be tight only on one side. You may be tight in 3 or 4 different places. You might be tight in only one place. But getting in can really help. And this is where a pelvic floor PT can really help. And Heather, I'm going to ask you to say a little bit about some of the stuff you have for this internal massage.
Thanks, Leslie. For pelvic floor, for Pelvic Health Month, we typically have our regular products, which is our Aloe Glide, which is 100% natural sexual lubricant, vaginal moisturizer, FDA approved. And this is also going to help. We actually sell applicators so that you can put it up there to help make tissues healthy. But it can also be used when she talks about with the massaging kind of that opening there. We also have our Gel A, which is going to be a little bit thicker. And this is, again, also 100% natural, pH balanced, isoosmolar, both the Glide and the Gel A. And these are going to just help, to make tissues healthy and help you make your own natural moisture. And it can be used in conjunction with, this month, we've partnered with a company called IC Relief, and they make what I guess we consider to be some of the best pelvic wands available out there on the market right now. And these are going to help with trigger point therapy on the pelvic floor. And we have 2 different sizes. This is the regular size, and then we also have a larger XL size for pregnant women, men as well. And so these are made of silica glass, I can never pronounce that word. And so these, like, you're going to drop these aren't going to break, shatter, chip, and these are going to be non-porous, which is why we choose these. Most important for bacterial growth, cleaning, everything else like that. Non-porous, and it's going to help. And we are also providing guidance with these from Duke University and their women's PT department, pelvic PT department, as well as from Amy Stein and her guide on how to use these and pelvically with a clock, the clock and everything.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah. So all right. So I really suggest you go to a PT if you're having issues. They will guide you how to do this better than I can on Facebook Live with a model. Okay. But that said, what I want to say is that if I bring this again closer to the camera, you can see that there's 3 openings. Your urethral opening is forward of the vaginal opening, and where you don't want to massage is up in that area, because that can be aggravating to the urethra. So Heather was mentioning trigger points. So trigger points, just like other places in our body, we can have like one spot that's really held, and there's a lack of blood flow in that area. So that's why this massage can be really helpful. Again, the fingers can be great for tactile feedback, but what's great about the wand that Heather has, I know some of you are looking at it like, oh my God, that thing is like got a little hook in it. But we are not a straight line, okay? If you think about it, there's lots of curves that we can't get to with our fingers. So that's what's really helpful with the wand. I just wanted to mention staying away from the very front so that you don't aggravate the urethra.
And I did bring this in here to kind of see, it might be hard, but this is kind of what comes with it and talks about your pelvic floor like a clock, and how to hit those trigger points for self-massage and at home, separate. We also this month, Icy Relief has provided, and this is great for after yoga, even after this is a, let me take it out of here for you. This is called Easy to Cool. This nicely snaps around the underwear and has a nice cooling ice pack in here for you, so that then you can just snap this around your underwear, and after PT or after yoga, or just if you're having pain in general, you can literally just snap this around your underwear and insert the cool pad right here. So this is Easy to Cool, and this is again from Icy Relief that we partnered with this month. And then the only other item that we have, and then I'll get done with my shameless self-promotion and let Leslie get back on with the yoga. We have the Relivium, which has 4% lidocaine in it. So this is going to be for your more severe pain, and to kind of help be that barrier to get past for whether for treatment, whether it's PT, whether it's trigger point, you know, doing
super helpful if you have vulvodynia. If you have a vulvodynia diagnosis from your PT, this, you want to use this because it'll really help you get into the massage, which you usually can't without it.
Yeah, and this is 100% natural except for that 4% lidocaine. Again, so a whole host of plant botanicals, all anti-inflammatory or analgesic as well. So highly recommended. Those are the products that we definitely recommend in companion with yoga, PT, and we will be talking hopefully later this month about some telehealth options with some PTs here in the U.S. and abroad as well. So I'll let Leslie get back to it.
That I'm done. I hope that at some of the poses that I taught you, it was just a little like a tasting of what I do. There's, you know, again, my book is not just yoga poses, but it's also asking yourself the story of your pelvis. I say every pelvis has a story. It can be very healing and helpful to write down the story of your pelvis, meaning like what's the history of your pelvis. You know, what are those cultural messages you've got? So many women, myself included, sexual abuse. This is definitely a huge contributor to pelvic pain. If you have been threatened in your pelvic area, your pelvis is going to clench up. And for many of us, it just stays clenched because we're always on guard. We're always bracing for the next horrible thing. Also, we're in the time of COVID right now. We're all in lockdown. You know, the pelvic floor is the root, our root chakra. It's our, how do we sit in the world? How are we situated in the world? Well, we're all feeling a little threatened right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if the pelvic pain right now is going up. So that, you know, that would be totally understandable, normal if that's what's happening to you.
And that would be a great time, Leslie, for them to, you know, when you don't have the options to go to yoga, to go to your PT, to do something like your pelvic pain series with the live stream that you're going to be doing next month.
Yes, right. So yeah, so that series, thank you for mentioning that. I forgot. My shameless promotion button went off. So yeah, June 1st, it's Monday nights, Pacific time, 5 to 7. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. I hope that's not too late for my East Coasters. That is pretty late, but okay. Well, I try to do them on the weekends, but I couldn't do them in June on the weekends. So I'm doing them regular basis. You can go to my website, lesliehowardyoga.com, to find more information there. You can sign up for my newsletter there. I usually always try to put something informative and interesting in there about pelvic health. And then the last thing I'll mention that if you're a yoga teacher, a PT, a doula, a midwife, a massage therapist, I've done a 20-hour online pelvic floor yoga training. I used to do them in person. I don't know when I'll be doing them again. I just so happened to be able, I was working on this when this whole thing went down, and I was like, oh my God, the timing couldn't be better that I have it online. So there's information on my website about that. It's self-paced, it's all recorded, so you can do it at your own pace. And for people who attended this workshop, I'm giving a 10% discount. Just put in the code HAPPYPelvis10 and you'll get 10% off of that. So I think that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Sorry again for the late start.
Yeah.
We had some technical difficulties. Thank you, Heather, for hosting this and
Yes,
for inviting me.
Let me get that code up there for you too, so that everybody can see Happy Pelvis 10. And Desert Harvest also has a code for any of the products that I just showed you here. You can also use Yoga 10 on our website. And I'll put that up here so that you got both of our codes here. So if you want to do some of the live streaming sessions, and the pelvic pain series available on Leslie's website, definitely use the Happy Pelvis 10. And if you'd like to buy any of our Desert Harvest products, you're welcome to use that Yoga 10 code anytime here for the rest of the month. And thank you so much, Leslie, for taking this time today to show everybody and give them some guidance when everybody's stuck in home pain.
Yeah, no problem. Also, just a quick question came in about vestibulitis.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that is vestibulitis is pain of the outside of the pelvis. And yes, the poses that I showed today can really help that. Okay.
All right.
A lot of comments, but that was a question. So I just wanted to address that. All right. Okay, people.
Future questions later, make sure I'm going to repost this video, and you can definitely put up questions. And if I'm not able to answer them, I'll put them out to Leslie and she can jump on there and answer them for you. Okay.
All right. And email me if you have questions, LeslieHowardYoga@gmail, LeslieHowardYoga.com. All right.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.